You hear a noise outside your window. You see someone watching from the edge of the dark. You stop for gas, thinking it's just another night. But what if the real horror isn't what you see? It's what's waiting after you look away. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Night Terror X, your last stop before the shadows take over. Tonight's video is a collection of 4 terrifying, true-inspired tales that begin in ordinary places: a quiet childhood bedroom, a roadside gas station, the path behind a family home, but spiral into something far more sinister. These aren't ghost stories evaporates from the past. These are things that happened when the world was still awake, and they could happen again. You'll hear what it's like to be hunted without ever leaving your house. You'll witness how a simple road trip turns into a memory you can't shake. And you'll find out what happens when a stranger doesn't want to sell you something. He wants you to remember him. If you enjoy being scared, you're in the right place. So before we begin, smash that like button, share your own disturbing encounters in the comments. Or if you have a story that's too real, too personal, and too terrifying, email it to nightterror@xinbox@gmail.com. Now, get comfortable, but not too comfortable, because once you hear these stories, you'll start to notice what's watching you, too. The Watcher in the Hills. So I was talking to my cousin one night over coffee, and she told me this story, one that still sends a chill down my spine every time I think about it. It happened last November, right around Thanksgiving, when she and her roommate were driving home from college. They're both in their early 20s, and they'd just finished finals, exhausted, relieved, and excited to finally unwind with family. Her parents live in a pretty remote part of the Ozark Mountains in northern Arkansas. To get there, you have to wind through these ridiculously narrow roads, sharp turns, no guardrails, steep drop-offs that feel like they fall forever. The kind of road where one wrong move sends you tumbling into nothing. They were in her roommate's car this time, a little sedan that didn't exactly inspire confidence on those roads. My cousin was driving, slower than usual because it wasn't her car, and the mountain air had turned slick and cold. They were about halfway through the most dangerous stretch when they noticed a car behind them, closer than it should have been. She said it didn't tailgate aggressively, but it never backed off either. Every curve they took, every narrow pass, it stayed right behind them. She tried to shake it by pulling into a tiny gravel lot outside an abandoned roadside chapel, empty, dark, forgotten by time. The car passed them without slowing down. They waited a minute, nothing, no return, so they figured it was over and got back on the road. But it wasn't over. Less than 10 minutes later, as they rounded a blind turn, there it was, a car parked dead center in the middle of the road. No hazard lights, no movement, just sitting there. My cousin slowed to a crawl, expecting someone to wave them around or signal for help. But instead, nothing. The car just sat there like a wall. Her roommate tried to rationalize it. Maybe they broke down and don't have service. And yeah, out there, you might as well be in a different century. No bars, no GPS, no way to reach anyone. But something about the whole setup felt off. My cousin locked the doors, instincts flaring. That's when her roommate leaned forward and whispered, I think that's the same car that was following us." And then the man got out. She described him as average height, scruffy, probably mid-40s, wearing a weathered hoodie and jeans. But what made her skin crawl was that he didn't check under the hood, didn't make a call, didn't move like someone stranded. He just walked to the back of his car, leaned against it, and stared at them. Not a glance through them. Number A full locked-on stare, calm, almost amused. My cousin froze. Her roommate started hyperventilating. They couldn't go around. The turn was too sharp, too dangerous, so they waited. My cousin honked. Once, twice. Nothing. Just him, standing there. They sat there for nearly 15 minutes. No movement, no explanation, just that unnerving silence and his fixed gaze through the cold windshield. My cousin had her foot hovering over the gas, ready to ram past him if he so much as flinched. Then finally headlights appeared behind them. The second those lights hit the road, the man darted into his car, slammed the door, and peeled off like he was on fire, tires screeching, disappearing around the bend faster than seemed possible. No breakdown, no issue. Just gone. Relieved but shaken, they continued the rest of the way, eyes wide, hearts pounding. The road felt quieter after that until about 30 minutes later. They saw him again. Same car, pulled off the side of the road, engine off, lights out. And as soon as they passed, it pulled out behind them. He followed them for miles, wouldn't pass, wouldn't fall back, just kept his distance, close enough to be seen in the rear view, far enough not to provoke a reaction. By then, they had cell service. My cousin called her brothers, told them everything, begged them to be outside when they arrived. And they were. She said when they turned onto the gravel driveway leading to her house, her brothers were already standing on the porch, both holding aluminum bats like they meant business. The car crept down the drive, headlights sweeping across the trees, and just when it seemed like it might pull in, it stopped, waited, then turned around and vanished back into the dark. No plates they could make out, no logo or sticker. Just that same blank, forgettable car. Like it was never supposed to be remembered, only felt. They never saw it again. But she said sometimes when she's driving alone through the hills, she still checks the mirror a little too often, half expecting that same car to be waiting just around the bend. So yeah, maybe it was nothing. Or maybe some people out there don't follow you to scare you. Maybe they follow you just to watch. The hours he waited. So I was catching up with an old friend over dinner last month, someone I hadn't seen since our college days, and out of nowhere, she tells me this story. She looked dead serious, like it had been bottled up for years. And honestly, I've thought about it every night since. Back when she was fresh out of high school, she played a season of soccer for a small community college in Southern Oregon. Just a local team, nothing major. That year was packed. Classes, training, games. But she had this hour-long break every Tuesday and Thursday between lectures, so she'd usually hang around the athletics building or kick a ball around near the practice field. One day, a guy who worked part-time in the athletic department started showing up. He was a student, too, just a year older, and handled gear and equipment for events. Nothing seemed off at first. They'd chat here and there. He'd sit with her sometimes on the bleachers, or walk with her across campus. He was quiet, polite, a little awkward, but not in a creepy way. At least not then. Then one afternoon she was in the library, alone, headphones in, when he popped up beside her with a candy bar and said, "Long break, huh?" She laughed it off. Small talk. But from that day on, he was there. Every Tuesday, every Thursday, no books, no laptop, no real reason to be around. Just there, sitting with her, watching her study. He started bringing little things, cookies, pens, Even a sketch he said reminded him of her. She thought he was just being nice. Maybe had a crush. She didn't feel threatened, just weirded out sometimes. After the season ended right before Thanksgiving, he asked if she'd be playing another year. She said no. Soccer was just a one-time thing for her. She also mentioned how much she hated that hour-long gap between classes and didn't plan on having it next semester. At the time, she didn't think anything of it. Just casual conversation. But that Thursday before Thanksgiving, that was the last time she saw him on campus. Then came winter break. She was at home one morning, just getting out of bed, when she noticed a car parked across the street. Engine off, no movement. She didn't recognize it at first, but the next day, it was there again. And this time, she saw him, just sitting behind the wheel, watching the house. She didn't want to believe it. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe he lived nearby, but he didn't. The third time, he was parked there again. Same time, same spot. That day, she called the police. They came out, talked to him. He told them he wasn't doing anything illegal and didn't want to talk further. They shrugged, said unless he trespassed or threatened someone, there wasn't much they could do. He started showing up in the afternoons when her parents weren't home. He never knocked, never got out of the car, just sat there, always watching, always waiting. No phone in hand, no music, just silence, stillness. She called the cops again and again, but each time it was the same. No crime, no action. At night she started sleeping with the curtains shut tight, but that didn't stop her from checking every 15 minutes, peeking between the blinds to see if his car was there. Some nights it was, some nights it wasn't. But the fear never left. And then, one day, he was gone. She never saw the car again, never saw him again. He just stopped showing up. Years later, she still doesn't know why he fixated on her. She doesn't know if something finally distracted him, or if he just found someone new to watch. But she told me she still avoids libraries, still avoids small talk with strangers. And even now, sometimes, when her phone buzzes or a car slows down outside, she braces herself, just in case. So if you ever get that weird feeling that someone's paying a little too much attention to your schedule, trust it. Because once someone learns when you'll be alone, they don't need permission to show up. They just need time and patience. The Man at the Window. A friend of mine, Rachel, told me this story after I helped her move back to the city last fall. She'd been living out in the suburbs to take care of her elderly parents. You know, quiet neighborhood, houses spaced out, one of those places where nothing's supposed to happen. But what she told me that night made my skin crawl, and I think about it every time I hear something outside my own window. Rachel had moved into the downstairs bedroom of her childhood home. It was the only room that made sense for her. Close to her parents, easy access, and it had a large window facing the street. She told me she liked it open at night. The breeze helped her sleep, and there was an old cabinet with an aquarium in front of the window, so she figured it'd be hard for anyone to climb in even if they tried. Her dog, Marley, slept in the room with her. Medium-sized, golden brown, friendly-looking, but protective. The kind of dog that didn't bark unless it meant something. Rachel always said Marley had this sixth sense for anything out of place. That dog made her feel safe. Until one night last summer. It was around 3:40 a.m. She couldn't sleep, probably because of her parents' care needs. She was sitting up in bed, reading when Marley gave this low, rumbling growl. Not the usual alert kind, This one was deeper, serious. Then he jumped off the bed and stalked toward the window, ears up, muscles tense. That's when Rachel heard it, a creak. Like weight shifting on wood, Marley leapt onto the cabinet and started barking violently. Rachel said her heart skipped. She walked over, careful not to show herself too much, and peeked through the edge of the curtains. Nothing. Street was empty. Lights out across the road. Still, something didn't sit right. She pulled the curtains shut, right over left, then made sure they overlapped, tucking the edges so tightly the wind couldn't budge them. She sat back on the bed, Marley still growling at the window, and tried to convince herself it was just a fox or someone walking by. But she couldn't shake the tension, and just when her body started to relax, it happened again. Marley stood up slowly this time. He didn't bark, he just growled, and his eyes locked on the curtain. Then came the breathing. Rachel described it like something out of a nightmare. Not panicked breathing, not wheezing, but slow, deep, deliberate inhales, loud enough to hear from across the room. She sat bolt upright and stared. The curtain had been pulled back on the right side, not just a flutter, like someone had lifted it on purpose and was peeking under. That's when she moved. She slid off the bed and rushed toward the side of the window, her voice loud, shouting, hoping it'd scare whoever was there. And as she reached the curtain, just before yanking it open, she saw a figure retreating to the right. A man. Average height, silhouette dark, head smooth like he was either bald or wearing a cap. No face, just the outline moving toward the front of the house and the garden gate. Rachel slammed the window shut, heart pounding, hands shaking. Marley barked like mad. She called 911 and stayed on the line, walking room to room, turning on every light downstairs, double-checking every lock. 2 officers arrived about 20 minutes later. They took her statement, asked about cameras, suggested checking with neighbors. But the man, he was long gone. Here's the part that really stuck with her, creeped her out more than anything else. She'd shouted, loud. She knew whoever was out there had heard her. But he didn't move. He stayed. He waited. It wasn't until she stepped up to the window, until she saw him, that he walked away. Like he wanted her to know he was there, like he wanted her to look. And that wasn't the end of it. Rachel told me she couldn't sleep for days. She stopped opening the window at night. But one thing kept gnawing at her. What if he'd been there before? What if he'd been watching, learning her schedule? Most nights, she'd let Marley out the back garden alone, sometimes at 2 or 3 in the morning. She realized how easy it would be for someone to slip around the side of the house. The path back there wasn't secured, just a short gate meant to keep the dog in, not anyone out. And then she dropped the worst detail. She said the second time it happened, the breathing, the growl, the curtain moving. He didn't run when she shouted. He stayed, long enough for her to rise, step toward the window, and see him. That means he wasn't just lurking, he was waiting to be seen. And that's what messed her up the most. He wasn't trying to break in. He didn't want anything. He just wanted her to know he was there. So yeah, if you ever think someone's just passing by, or you hear a weird sound and chalk it up to the wind or the house settling, remember this: some people don't need a reason to scare you. They just enjoy watching through the window, waiting for you to notice. The Stranger at Pump 6. A friend of mine, Tyler, told me this story after a long night drive we took last winter. We were swapping weird travel stories. And when he told me what happened to him the night before Thanksgiving a couple years ago, I stopped laughing. He wasn't smiling. He was dead serious, and I could tell it still messed with him. He and his older brother had been driving from Southern California up to the northern part of the state to spend the holiday with family. It was late, maybe close to midnight, and they were just a couple exits away from their destination when the gas light blinked on. Not wanting to risk it, they pulled off the highway and into a small, dimly lit gas station near a stretch of highway that felt off. You know that feeling when a place seems like it hasn't seen a cop in weeks? His brother went inside to use the restroom, leaving Tyler alone to fill the tank. That's when he noticed someone walking over from the edge of the building, not from the store itself, but from the shadows off to the side, near where the dumpsters were. The guy looked rough, maybe mid-40s, wiry, sunken eyes, patchy beard. His clothes were old, oversized, and stained, like he'd been sleeping in them for days. He had that jittery energy that makes your gut tighten before your brain even catches up. The guy nodded and said, "Hey, man," then held something up wrapped in a black plastic bag. "You want to buy a PlayStation 4? Real cheap." Tyler said it took him a second to process what was even happening. Here he was, half asleep, pumping gas in the middle of nowhere, and this dude was trying to sell him a gaming console from a garbage bag. The guy talked fast, glancing around like he expected someone or something to catch him. "It's real. Works great. I just need gas money. You into games?" Tyler told him no, trying to keep his tone calm, not aggressive, but firm enough to shut it down. But the guy didn't take the hint. He stepped a little closer and pushed harder. "Come on, man. Don't leave me hanging out here like this. It's a steal. Practically giving it away." Tyler's hand froze on the gas nozzle. He wasn't scared yet. Not really. But his instincts? They were screaming. The man's body language shifted fast, like someone used to flipping a switch. One second he was smiling, the next he was glaring. When Tyler told him, flat out, to back off, that's when it got nasty. The man's face twisted into this ugly sneer, and he started shouting, swearing, accusing Tyler of disrespecting him. He kept one hand under his shirt, like he might be hiding something. Tyler couldn't tell if it was just a bluff or something worse. And here's where it gets creepy. There was no one else around, no cars pulling in, no clerk visible inside, just him, the guy, and the faint buzz of the overhead lights. He thought about grabbing the handle on the pump just in case things got physical, but he stayed still. He didn't want to provoke him. Then just like that, the guy backed off. He turned and walked away, slowly, casually, like nothing had happened. Tyler watched him get into a beat-up white pickup parked just out of the camera's range. A woman was in the passenger seat. She didn't look scared, just bored. As they drove past, they both stared at him through the windshield, grinning like they were in on a joke he didn't understand. When his brother finally came out, Tyler didn't even mention it at first. He just said, "Let's go," and got in the car. They drove off in silence, and only after a few miles did he feel his hands start to shake. It didn't hit him until later how badly it could have gone. What if the guy was armed? What if Tyler had said the wrong thing or looked away for a second? No one would have been there to stop it. The cops wouldn't have arrived in time. It would have been another incident, buried in some local news headline. Man robbed, stabbed, shot. Whatever. All for being in the wrong place at the wrong time and not playing along with someone else's script. So now, Tyler says he never pumps gas alone at night. Ever. And when he tells this story, it always ends the same way. Next time you stop somewhere quiet, look around. Not everyone's there for gas.